Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Global Card Collectors. I'm here with Shanan Goff. Is that how we say your name? I forgot to ask beforehand.
It's Shanan Goff.
Shanan, yeah. Okay. Shanan Goff, and he goes by, apologies for that, and he goes by Great Buyback Cards on Instagram. Actually, I want to ask you that question straight up. Why the name Great Buyback Cards? I was curious. I have a feeling I know what it is, but if you could explain that, it'd be cool.
Yeah, so it was actually a spin-off of my main Instagram account, which is Great Buyback, and that's related to what you see behind you, which is my action figure collection. So about 5 years ago, I decided that I was going to go back and buy back every action figure or toy that I ever owned as a child. So I've been on that journey along with the card journey for the last 5 years. So that was Great Buyback. And then Great Buyback Cards was just, I decided I wanted to spin it off and have an account just for cards, because I realized there was a lot of people that were following me that actually didn't care about the toy side of things.
Great. So, in fact, let's get straight into that question. What got you into collecting cards? Obviously, it seems like you're a natural collector with the displays behind you. But how did you get into card collecting in particular?
Yeah, so I actually don't remember ever opening my first pack of cards. Like I must have been about 5, I guess, judging by just the cards that I had. But there were things like G.I. Joe and Garbage Gang, even things like Neighbors were releasing cards at the time.
Yeah.
So I just remember having these cards and just going down to the dairy every time I could scrounge up some money from mum and dad and buying packs of cards. And I think back then you were looking at 30 or 40 cents a pack. So with $2, you could get quite a few cards, right? And I just, it wasn't really something that I thought was a hobby, like a proper collectible hobby. It was just cards that I had and things that I thought kids had. So it took me quite a while. And I think that collector nature in me was kind of ingrained. So I tried things like stamps for a while, but I couldn't really get into it. Like, it just seemed a little bit boring. But I actually stumbled across. I tried to sell some cards, like on the radio. You could ring up and place adverts on the radio. And as a kid, I must have been about 9 or 10. I got my mum to help me, and I put an ad on the radio. And I didn't have any luck selling any cards, but an adult collector actually rang me up. A guy, Wayne Davidson, who I think he's still kind of in the hobby now, but he rang me up and he said, you can actually do this as a proper hobby. There's like a club and everything that you can join, and you can meet other collectors. Because at the time I felt quite isolated. I didn't really know my friends weren't really into that cards. Okay. So he got me signed up with like the Cardophilic Society as a youth member. And he also kind of schooled me on like things like condition and how to protect cards and like the 9-page binders and everything. Like before that, I didn't know any of that stuff, and like I just had rubber bands around my little bundles. And like I think even with my G.I. Joe cards, the first lot I got, I Durasealed them. Like I put them within.
But there's that mentality already. Like, I want to protect them. Interesting.
Yeah. And so this was all, just kind of before the big boom, right? Before the basketball card boom kicked off. So I felt kind of well prepared when that did kick off, because I was already kind of in the hobby. And about the same time, I guess I was about 11 years old, I started playing basketball. So when the basketball cards came along as well, I was well hooked, because it was like the two things in my life combining. So I was pretty stoked with that.
I think pretty much that story and mine are almost identical. I don't think that I had G.I. Joes per se. I remember my again, like you, I can't quite remember what my first pack of cards I opened were. It was either ARL or today's NRL rugby league cards, or wrestling cards. And I've seen on your Instagram page the wrestling cards with the red backgrounds, and then there's that kind of, I guess you'd call it like a pinkish background almost. I used to
Yes.
collect those, and I remember going to a specific dairy that would always
Yes.
have them. And I've
These
driven
ones.
past that same dairy, which is still up. Yeah, those ones. Yeah, those ones. Yeah, they were the very first ones. Um,
Yeah.
I've driven past that dairy recently, and just something inside me wants to stop, but I just know that they're not going to have guards in there anymore. Like, do you know what I mean? It's just one
Yeah.
of those sorts of places. But it holds a lot of nostalgia for me driving past it, and it was fun to do it. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's a great story. So, did you just continue collecting cards from the '90s onwards, being part of the Card Affiliate
Yes.
Society? What happened next?
I yeah, obviously really into it when basketball was a thing, I guess in the mid nineties. Like I
Yeah.
remember like I'm from Invercargill, right? So it's a town of maybe 50,000 people. There was one time where we had three shops that were like about cards. So we had like Sports Cards Plus, which was a shop only cards. We had Champions of the World, which was like a sporting goods store. They also half of their shop basically was cards at one point,
Wow.
and like Mark One Comic and Collectibles, which was also had a massive card contingent at the front of the shop with like
Hmm.
a lot of the non-sport stuff. So it was an amazing time to be alive, right? Like all your friends were collecting cards in the mid 90s,
Yeah.
and it just I guess it felt like it just kind of exploded and then kind of crashed within a couple of years, really.
Yeah, less
And
than a couple of years, almost. It felt like a year and a half, man.
yeah,
And
yeah,
a
it
collector
was,
like me, I was just like, I still want to collect them. And so whenever I could get
yeah,
my hands on them, I would. But I think I regret not trying to chase a bit harder and find ways to collect them. But it was tough back then. And I
it
think that's
was.
probably something that I didn't make the connection to later on because I've always wanted to collect cards. So
Mm,
when I got older, I just never thought that it was possible. But you know what? With the
mm.
internet and with the way that shipping has changed, I probably could have gotten back into it a lot sooner.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I remember like in the tail end of high school, I was still kind of trying, and I remember getting lucky because like one of those shops, I can't remember which one it was, but one of them kind of got rid of all their stock and it ended up in a secondhand store.
Oh
So I remember
wow!
finding the stock there, and like they didn't know what they had, so it was kind of like everything was 50 cents each, whether it was like a base card or like an insert. So I remember just yeah,
Oh
shoveling
wow!
over cash, picking up heaps of good stuff that way. And then like as we got to university, Trade Me was kind of taking off. And I remember
Hmm.
in the first couple of years of university, just getting amazing deals on Trade Me, where like my wife now, my girlfriend at the time, she was just buying stuff for me because she was kind of addicted to Trade Me, and there'd be like a box of cards turn up. She'd be like, oh, "I got you some more cards," and I'd look through and it'd be like three binders of like '90s NBA inserts that she'd picked up for like $30 or
Awesome!
$40 because it was just at that
Oh
time
wow!
where everyone was kind of getting out of the hobby.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, great.
Yeah, so that was gold. But then yeah, after that I
Yeah,
just
yeah, great.
sent all my cards back home to Invercargill and put them in mum and dad's garage, and because it was just hard, you know, at that time in your life when you're hopping from flat to flat. Um, and then it was only like 2014 when I went back down to Invercargill, loaded up the car, got my cards back, drove back to Wellington, and
Wow.
started collecting again. Yeah, 2014. And I think in hindsight that was probably because of Stephen Adams. I think really like I've always been super obsessed with like New Zealand basketball and Kiwis playing overseas. So when he hit the NBA,
Hmm.
I was like, here's a good opportunity for someone. Because before that we had like Sean Marks and Kirk Penny, but neither of them really had many cards.
Hmm.
And I was like, yeah, Stephen Adams is actually going to have some cards, so I can start collecting again. And then yeah, we also bought a house, so I actually had space that I had this room to actually start using for a hobby room. So yeah, a
Awesome.
few things came together.
Uh, I love that. I love that Stephen Adams was the one to reignite your passion in cards, and I had thought about it too when he got to the league. I was like, huh, maybe I should start collecting cards again. But again, it was a mentality in my head like, oh, it's all a bit too hard. Oh, I can't figure it out. But I've
Yeah.
since regretted that I didn't get into it sooner. But maybe my wife doesn't regret that I got into it sooner.
Yeah. It's definitely it's a weird
Awesome, man.
experience getting back into it, eh? Like I think it, you know, when you come back in and like Panini are owning everything, and they were
That's
just a
right.
sticker company before, and like, you know, Tops is gone and Upper Deck's gone, and it's just yeah, very
And
strange.
and it's a monopoly, and on top of
Mm,
that, there's grading to figure out, and what are the
Yes.
best grading cards, and then there's all these influences on top of everything else, and you're just like, whoa! It was a steep learning curve, that's for sure. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
definitely.
Um, so tell us a little bit more about your basketball, because I've obviously checked you out a little bit on Facebook, and I see that you're still playing basketball. So at least
Yeah,
one of us
trying to.
is. I mean, it's been many years since I've played. So and I
Yeah.
noticed that you were playing with some ex Tall Blacks. I saw a
Yeah.
picture with you with Phil Jones recently, which is pretty awesome. If you want to just
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about your journey as a basketball player too, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So like I said, I started when I was like 11 years old, and I got really into it and really enjoyed it. I played sort of rep basketball for Southland throughout my teen years, and then yeah, just played a little bit after that, and then kind of life happened, and you have kids and you have a job, and things get busy. But yeah, about 5 or 6 years ago, I got back into it because where I live, there's quite a strong kind of basketball community where, like, literally across the road, I can go and, run scrimmages a couple of times a week, which is pretty amazing.
Perfect.
Um, and yeah, I got together with a guy that I worked with and I said, we're actually over 35 now. We could play Masters games. And he's like, what? And he's like, what's that? And I'm like, well, that's like where all the old people in New Zealand get together and they play basketball.
Yeah, cool.
And yeah, so we went to our first Masters game. I think it was like 2019. And I remember getting to the stadium and I looked down at the court and Phil Jones is warming up. And like, I guess for people that don't know Phil Jones, like, he's probably one of the top two or three scorers in New Zealand history. Like,
Easily the best
he's,
shooter in New Zealand history, I think. I think he's our best
yeah,
shooter we've ever had.
yeah. Like, when I was playing in Dunedin, I heard what I thought was an urban legend that he scored over 100 points in a game. And I have recently sort of done the research, and like, it's actually true. He scored 105 points in a Dunedin A League game, like not against slouches, like against other good players. 105 points.
I
So
love that you're
yeah, when
going
we
into a Masters game. Oh, it's going
yeah
to be easy. We're going to play with the old guys. Phil Jones
yeah
is the guy swimming up on the
yeah
other side of the court. You're like, how do I know that guy? Why is he not missing? Amazing.
yeah yeah. So it was a bit of a shock. I think they beat us by about 30 points. But I scored a few. I think I had like 16 on him. Well, not on him in particular,
Nice.
but I had
Yeah.
about 16
No, you
points
can
hands.
say
I was
that
happy
if you
with.
want.
Yeah. I don't think he was guarding me much, and if he'd wanted to, he would have, yeah, just dominated me. Yeah, that was super cool. And so then the next year when we came back, I bought a bunch of my cards to get signed, a bunch of different, New Zealand releases like Wheat Bix cards and a couple of other ones. I think some of my teammates thought I was a bit,
Bit of a
it was a bit
fanboy.
funny. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. It's like, you're supposed to be trying to beat these guys, not get their autographs. Um, but the guys were pretty awesome about it. Yeah, so it was good.
That's great, man. That's great. Hey, I see in the background there's a couple of WF posters there, and I can
Yeah,
see the Undertaker and WrestleMania 4. Obviously, we kind of touched on the wrestling cards thing, but I also looked through your Facebook page as well, and you've got a really great story to tell with one of the bushwhackers. I'll leave you to tell most of the details of it, but I was really intrigued when I saw that you befriended one of them, and if you just want to kind of explain in a little bit more detail for listeners what ended up happening with them, and I mean you can go from the beginning, like who are the bushwhackers and
yeah, for
what your
sure.
relationship is to them.
Yeah, yeah, cool. So for people that weren't around in the late 80s and early 90s, the Bushwhackers are a New Zealand tag team. They made it big in the WWF at the time, WWE now.
Hmm.
Both Kiwi guys, both from Wellington actually originally. They'd actually had very long careers before they even made it to the WWF. They were in their 40s by the time they made it big.
Sure.
But they sort of were very popular as like a comedic tag team over there. And yeah, they're big in the heyday of sort of, I guess, up until about '93, they kind of stopped being in the spotlight, and eventually one of them came home to New Zealand to retire, and it was actually through I was selling cards on eBay, so a lot of these wrestling cards that you were just talking about, the ones that I showed
Hmm.
before, I was selling quite a few of those on eBay to collectors in the States, and one guy turned out one guy was kind of a big autograph hunter, and he was getting some cards signed, and we were trading back and forth. And he said to me one day, he's like, if you ever track down Bushwhacker Butch, I've got a heap of stuff I'd like to get signed by him, because he's kind of not in the spotlight anymore. Bushwhacker Luke is easy to get because he's in America still. He's still doing the convention circuit, but Butch is nowhere to be seen. And my first impression was like, dude, like New Zealand's not that small. I'm not just going to run into him. But I did know that I live on the Kapiti Coast, and I had heard that he also lived on the Kapiti Coast, which is about 45 minutes out of Wellington. And I asked around a few people, because I had a few connections in the kind of New Zealand wrestling world, and people either didn't know or they kind of didn't want to give out his personal information, which is fair enough, right? Like, especially if he doesn't want to be found.
That's right.
But one Sunday, I went to the supermarket with my son, who was about 3 or 4 at the time, and I was just doing my grocery shop, and I looked up, and there's this old guy in the frozen food section, and I was like, you know what? That looks like Bushwhacker Butch. And yeah, I saw his arm, because he's got very distinctive tattoo, or he had very distinctive tattoos. One of them's like a tiger on his arm. And I was like, yep, that's definitely him, because it wasn't long after that they had been inducted into the Hall of Fame. So I kind of had this, I knew what he looked like as an old man, right? Like I kind of knew it was him. And it took me ages to build up the courage to approach him, because I had my son, and I was like, what if it's not him? What if he thinks I'm an idiot? So I waited until he actually got out into the car park, and I just went up to him and said, hey, sorry to interrupt, but I think you're Bushwhacker Butch, and this sounds weird, but I've actually got a business proposition for you. And he was kind of a bit taken back, but he was like, oh, yeah, okay. And I said, I've got a mate who wants to send you a bunch of stuff to get signed, and, I'll bring it to your house and everything, so it's no hassle for you, and you can get some good cash out of it. Yeah, and that worked out. So we did that. He signed, I think at the time it was probably 40 or 50 items. And then we just did that for a while. Like I would sort of go on social media and advertise and get people to send stuff, and we'd get it signed and send it back. And then after a while, like we just kind of built up a good rapport over time. And I said, I've always wanted to write a book around New Zealand wrestling. Like I wasn't sure exactly what, but what if we just wrote a book about you and about your life and your career? And yeah, he was open to that. So we started doing that. And yeah, I think we did something like 18 or 19 hours worth of interviews. But yeah, and then unfortunately, early last year, he passed away on a trip to the US. He went back to the US for the first time in many years, and got sick and passed away. So that was super sad, and it sort of took me a while to sort of process that and get back to the stage where I feel like I can finish the book. But just recently, I've sort of gone back and talked to his widow, and she's really excited to see the book finished, and I interviewed her again. And yeah, so we're going to get that finished in the next sometime, whenever life allows it.
Man, I'll be a starter to read it for sure. And I think for you, obviously, to finish it off, it's going to be a great memorial to him too, and just his life and what he was like. And I remember them. I remember them the first time. They were just like you said. I think you summed it up perfectly when you said that the Bushwhackers were a comedy tag team. They were hilarious, and just even the way that they walked into the ring with the big walk like this, it was so distinctive and so different and so much fun. Like Kiwis all around the country, when they heard New Zealand, like, are they really from New Zealand? Because the way they spoke, I think that they needed to kind of twang up and put up a bit of an American accent, so that people could understand them a little bit, because it's like, that doesn't sound like a New Zealand accent. But obviously they were Kiwis, and they really wanted to make sure that New Zealand was in the spotlight. That's amazing. And what a great story. Meeting him in the supermarket's incredible.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Like when I told my mate in the US, that he couldn't believe it either. He was just like, you real? Yeah. You're not just going to like take these and sign them yourself?
Yeah. And then on top of that, you'll be like, wow, I guess New Zealand is that small.
Exactly. Yeah.
He contacted me. Can you find? Yeah, no worries. He's like, amazing. Hey, do you have any other? Did he tell you any interesting stories that you'd like to share? Anything that pops into your head?
there's so many. Like trying to find something that's not going to take too long to tell.
No, it's fine. You
Um,
got plenty of time, man. You got plenty of time. This is great.
there's a story about Andre the Giant. I'm just
Oh
trying to
wow.
remember if I can get it straight in my head, but
Hmm.
um, basically they drove with Andre quite a bit. I think this was in Canada when they first went to Canada because Andre kind of he's French Canadian. He kind of knew
Hmm.
the ways around the territory, so he was driving them around, and they stopped at a gas station, and some guys were like wrestlers, I guess, often have to put up with a bit of crap from people, like just
Hmm.
you're in a pub or something and everyone wants to challenge you type deal. But these guys were giving Andre a bit of guff, and he he decided that he would grab their car and lift it up onto its side. I assume it was a small car, but
Yeah.
Andre the Giant's he was a big boy, so yeah, you wonder how much is exaggeration and how much of it's truth. But yeah, apparently he lifted the car up onto the side, and they were just like terrified. Um, and then he just walked back to his car and got on, and they just drove away. And then a few miles down the street, they get pulled over by the police, and the police are like looking at the car, and then they're like, "Oh, it's Andre the Giant. How's it going?" And they had a bunch of beers in the car and everything that they were polishing off, and the cops were just like, "Oh, it's all good. We'll catch you later."
Amazing.
Whipped
Wow.
them away with it.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
think like you say, you don't know the line between truth and reality with Andre because
yeah,
he was larger than life, man. He was just as he was. I think the nickname the Giant just absolutely suited him. I could believe that he'd tip a car up on its side, especially if it's a small one, no problem.
yeah,
Probably do it with one
yeah,
hand. He was just
yeah,
he was super strong. So that's really cool,
yeah.
man. Do you have any specific collecting experiences that you can remember that you'd like to share with us? Maybe like something, maybe a good find, maybe a nice deal that you made. Obviously, you told us a little bit of a contact that you were able to make in the States where someone over there needed something from New Zealand, which is pretty cool. Do you have
Yeah,
any collecting stories in particular?
yeah, a big one for me over the in the last few years. So the wrestling cards that you're talking about, right? Like, so
Hmm.
they were a big part of my childhood as well, and they were something that I kind of really obsessed about. And I was lucky enough to win like an album um, via like one of the magazines at the time, like The Truth or something. You
All right.
write in to the competition. I won the full album, so I was pretty stoked with that. But as I got older and like when I came back to collecting, I looked online and I saw that there was like this weird third, an alternate set of the third series. I don't know if you've heard about these at all, but like if you, so like these are your kind of, this is your normal cards, right?
Yeah,
These are
yeah,
the,
sure, sure. I remember the red ones for
yeah,
sure. That Hulk Hogan one I used to have, yeah, and
yeah,
Virgil I
yeah.
can see
And
here
then,
too.
but this here are the same cards, but different wrestlers, right? Your Earthquake and
Okay,
Demolition,
yeah,
which
cool.
don't exist in that. So that's kind of the third alternate set. And when I came back to collecting, I was like, what is this? Like, why don't I know anything about this? And I asked around other collectors, and no one seemed to know anything about it in New Zealand. And so I did some research. Took me a few years I was kind of like just mulling around the edges. I talked to a few American collectors, and they seemed to just think those were the normal cards because not many had made it over there. But yeah, a couple of years ago, I reached out and I actually found someone who used to work at the company, the Market Scene Limited company that made the cards.
Hmm.
And he said to me, "Oh, I've got a bunch of albums still complete that I wouldn't mind selling." And I was like, initially, I was like, "Oh, I'm not that interested. I've already got my album full of cards. I'm all good." And then after a while, I thought, "Oh, yeah, actually, maybe I'll buy those off you, and I might trade them for some other stuff." Um, and I had assumed I was just buying albums full of the normal cards.
Sure.
But when I got them in the mail, I actually had 5 albums full of Series 1, Series 2, and the third alternate set, which
Wow.
was like mind blowing because up until that point, I'd managed to pick up a couple on eBay, um, but I had never seen a full set and I didn't know anyone who had. Um, And what I managed to work out from him, like it was a little bit spotty because, obviously it was just his job. It wasn't something he took a lot of notice of back in the day. But what it appeared to be is that for each set, they would create a test and they would get those printed, and then they would sort of assess them and make sure there was no mistakes, and then they would get them printed properly. So this appears to be what that alternate set is. It was a test for the third series, and there's probably only 20 in existence. And we think that probably some of them made it over to America in the early 2000s with like someone in New Zealand or Australia, like a former employee, probably sending them over there, selling them over there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was pretty huge find. And yeah, so I kept one album for myself, and I sort of trade or sold the other four. Yeah, but so that was pretty cool. I was pretty stoked with that.
Oh, I bet you were. I
Yeah,
bet you were. Sometimes you just get lucky, man. Sometimes you just get lucky, on certain deals.
yeah,
I think maybe the luckiest I got was, I remember it was during the pandemic, and I know it was during the pandemic. So I was living in Turkey at the time, and they have something similar to Trade Me on there. And since actually the website has gone bust, but I ended up spotting, and this is when I just got back into cards. So I'm on the couch watching something on TV with my wife. I got my phone out and I'm just scrolling, and then I spot that there's a new listing that's come up under cards because I have like a light that turns on. I have a notification whenever the word cards comes up, and it was just a tiny little binder. The guy was selling it for about 20 New Zealand dollars, or about 14 or 15 US dollars, and there were about 4 pages. But inside it were like two Kobe Bryant rookie cards, an Allen Iverson rookie card, a couple of really rare Jordan cards. And so I was like,
yeah,
I'd like to buy that, thank you. Because, often in those sorts of places, you might say, oh, what's your best price? I didn't ask at all. I wasn't negotiating. It was an amazing price. I said, like, so is it still for sale? Can I pick it up? And the guy's like, yeah, when can you come? I'm like, I can come tomorrow, because it's like, it's at nighttime. So as soon as I was finished work, during the pandemic, we masked up. We were walking in the streets. It was like the first couple of weeks. Nobody was on the streets. We ended up jumping into a taxi. We wound all the windows down so we weren't spreading out germs and such. We drove to this guy's place. I couldn't grab those cards out of his hand fast. I was like, here's the money. Give me the cards.
yeah.
It was great. So I think that was the
Oh, that's
luckiest I ever got. So I've since graded
yeah.
both of them.
Oh, yeah.
The Kobe Bryant rookie card that I have is it's back in Turkey, but I can still remember it. It's the class of '96 one. It's one of those insert sets.
Yep.
Back in the boom, that card as a PSA 9 was going for, or even a Raw was going for about 1,500 US. I think now it's about a
Oof.
$500 or $600 card. Yeah, but I got it
Yeah.
graded. It got a 9, which is great. And the other Kobe
Yeah.
Bryant rookie card that I got was an NBA hoops insert, and it's the rookies, and it's the one where it's a bird's eye view picture of him, and he's dunking, and I
Oh,
got
wow.
that one graded with SGC. I think they got an 8.5 from memory, so I
That's
was
all
very
right.
happy, man. I mean, it was for $15. You got two Kobe's, two rare Jordans, another Iverson rookie, and then just all these other Hall of Fame players, like base card of Kevin Garnett and Dennis
Yeah.
Rodman and Reggie Miller, and they're all from that '96 Flair series. Do you remember those ones?
Yep.
FLAIR. They're
Yeah.
such
Yeah.
good quality cards, man, and they were in really good condition. So that was my lucky
Yeah.
find for $15 to get those. I was, like you say,
So
I,
good.
I couldn't have got to that guy's house fast enough. I would have gone in that evening if I had to. If he said, I'm
Yeah.
selling it tonight, okay, I'm coming, I would have done it. Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
cool, man. That's pretty cool. But I definitely like your find too. Sometimes it's just you're in the right place in the right time and you make the right deal. It can happen.
Mm,
Do you want to show
definitely.
us a few of the cards that maybe some of your favorites in your collection, or some that just have a little bit of sentimental value, to say?
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. So I've got a couple here.
Cool.
Um, so this is National Treasures Steve Adams patch signed
Nice.
rookie. Yeah, and this one
Nice.
super important to me because it's one my wife got me. Back in a few years back when I was collecting him quite heavily. But it was one that I was complete surprise. Like I didn't know what she was doing, but she went off and did all the research and everything, and she
Wow.
knew that I don't really like sticker autos. Like I mean I'll have them in my collection, but I'm very much an on-card auto person. So
Nice.
she knew that I wanted Steve Adams, and then she asked on forums and stuff, and she was like, "Oh, what's a good Steven Adams card that I can get my husband?" So like yeah, like it's really hard when you've got a partner, right, who has a hobby. Like she has her own hobbies, and it's really hard to buy her something that is going to be like meet all the criteria of like being perfect for her hobby,
Yeah.
without just asking them what they want, you know. So yeah, that one was pretty special for me.
It's pretty awesome. Is that one number two?
Yeah, so it was out of 99, 10 out of 99. It was back when he
Yeah.
had the
So that
proper auto. Like I think now he just does SA.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
similar. I
Cool.
saw your one that you got, the flag one you got recently.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'm
that's
very
awesome.
happy with that, man. I'm very happy with that.
Yeah,
My friend John, the guy who I do the show with, he's big on flag cards. Like he's got so many really cool flag cards. And when I saw that one, I was like, man, that is really cool. You got our
yeah,
flag in the background, and then there's Steve with an on-card auto, and it's numbered.
yeah,
It's maybe the perfect Steven Adams card for me, unless you could somehow get a
yeah,
rookie card logo, man. You know, that's about it.
yeah,
But I love that
yeah,
you got an RPA from your wife. That's awesome, and it's
yeah,
numbered. Incredible.
yeah, yeah.
Obviously,
It's pretty
national
cool.
treasures have to be numbered, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Yeah, very cool.
yeah,
What else you got to show
yeah.
us?
So we've also got another one that's probably a pretty obvious addition, which is a
Oh
signed
wow! Oh wow!
Bushwhackers that's signed by Butch and also Luke. Yeah, for obvious reasons, like very sentimental to me with it being Butch. And just like I don't know if you remember, but these cards and the guy that I talked to that worked at the place, they purposely short printed certain wrestlers out of each set. So the Bushwhackers from Series 1 were just printed like a fraction of the amount that one of the more common cards from the set was printed. And they did
Wow!
that specifically so that kids would have to just buy and buy and buy until they could complete the set. And the Bushwhackers was one of those
Makes
short
sense.
printed cards. So
Oh
it's an
wow!
incredibly hard card to find in any sort of decent condition. But to have that in reasonable condition and also signed by both guys is, pretty rare. I think
Yeah,
maybe
that's right.
like when I
Can
was
you hold
doing
that up for us again?
yeah, sorry, mate. When I was doing the
Yeah.
signings with Butch, we did maybe 3 or 4 of these, maybe for different people, including me.
Wow! Wow!
Um, yeah, so it's pretty cool. I'm actually working on now trying to get as many of those cards signed as possible out of the set. So there's 60 in the set. About 20 of those guys are unobtainable now because they've all passed away. So there's 40
Hmm.
that I can realistically get, and I'm up to about 32, I think, 31 or
That's
32.
great! Wow!
Yeah, so
Wow!
um, I'm just try like I often send when they do conventions over in the States, I'll send my cards over to the promoter and get them signed and get them sent back. Um,
Amazing.
yeah, so I'm getting there with that set.
And you're down to eight. Is there anyone that's going to be really hard to get that you can see?
Expensive to get is going to be Hulk Hogan. So there's 2 cards that
Sure.
I need for him, one from Series 2 and one from Series 3. He charges up to about 200 US for his auto. So yeah, and that's not really even considered to be that bad for him, really. Like it just kind of is what it is. So he'll be easy to get but expensive.
Yeah.
Shawn Michaels is actually going to be hard to get, I think. So Shawn Michaels, I don't know if you remember the Rockers. He was one half of the
I know Sean
Rockers.
Michael Harper kid, man.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So just because I think he works for WWE behind the scenes, he doesn't really do the convention circuit or anything. So
Okay.
yeah, he's gonna be tough. But I'll get there. And the last ones I wanted to show was just a couple of kind of more on-card autos of guys. I don't know if you can see those, but those are just more wrestling cards, but guys
Cool.
from Japan. So in Japan, there's a large wrestling promotion called New Japan Pro Wrestling, and they came to New Zealand in 2016 and did a big show up in Auckland. and I of course before the show I jumped on eBay and like bought all the Japanese wrestling cards I could, and went to the meet and greet there and got a bunch of them signed. So I got Kenny
That's
Omega,
cool.
and the other one there is Will Ospreay, who I actually got that one signed in Invercargill at a show. But Will Ospreay is now kind of um, in the kind of the main event picture in AEW, which is like the alternate show to WWE, like the other
Hmm.
big wrestling promotion.
Yeah, it's a big deal now. It's really kind of gained quite a lot of support in the last 2 years, I'd say.
Yes, yeah, it has, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, and so just I guess I really enjoy the on card, the in-person auto, because it has that memory of being at that event or being at that show. Like it's quite a cool thing to look back on, especially when you have good experiences with people. Like I've had a few
Yeah,
cards signed by guys that are not that great in person, and you kind of that sours you a little bit on it. But when you have a really
yeah,
nice
it's fair.
experience, like I remember Will Ospreay just being a really cool guy, like just really nice to talk to and that, and they were supposed to be charging, I think, $20 per auto or something, and he just gave me one for free. Like, just a cool guy.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah, very cool, man. How many on-card orders do you think you've gotten over the years?
probably not. Only a couple hundred, probably. Like to be honest, like I've
Only,
probably yeah. I've kind of gone hard this year in particular with my son. We go to the NBL games, and the the Australian NBL have cards now, and a lot of those players play in the local national league. And so yeah, we'll often go to the games and hang around afterwards and get cards signed. So I've probably added to the
Mhm.
collection quite a lot through that. And
Very
that's been
cool,
really
man.
fun, like sharing that experience with my son as well. Like he kind of really enjoys the hunt for getting autographs as well.
Great, great. That's really cool, man. So I didn't know that I didn't even think about that, but obviously there's an NBL set that's out there now. Was it last season they had one, and they have like Alex Sars in that set. Have you got that
Yes,
card,
yeah,
for
yeah,
example?
yeah. So they for tops they have the base set, and then they have Chrome. So Chrome actually just released today. Um, I just was in a break earlier with that, and yeah, Alex Sal's got quite a few cards in that set, a few inserts. I think maybe he's got an auto. Yeah, I think he's got an auto in that set as well.
Nice, nice, very
Yeah.
cool. What are two things that you think are things that you really appreciate about being a card collector? What are two of your favorite things about being a card collector?
I think one of them, to be honest, is like I've got a very varied group of interests, right? As you can see behind me, like I'm into wrestling,
Hmm.
I'm into basketball, I'm into action figures. So cards I find is great because like no matter what your interests are, there's generally cards out there to meet that interest. And I noticed
Yeah,
that about growing up is like as I said, I started off with G.I. Joe and then I morphed into wrestling and then morphed into basketball. So it's like that's what I enjoy having a consistent kind of medium that you can collect for all of your different interests. I think that's really cool.
yeah, yeah, great, yeah. And also, I
Yeah.
think when you're looking at it from a collector's point of view, you've got all of these action figures and that kind of thing, whereas cards take up a lot of space.
Yeah, yes, yeah, they do. Yeah, they don't have to be displayed. They can be kind of in albums and stuff. Yeah, and I think another thing is it's probably just the community aspect to it. I do enjoy, and I think that's what I was needing as a kid. Like I really wanted that ability to go out and meet people and join clubs and talk to people about your shared passions. I've really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think that that it's a community that I've found has kind of opened up to me ever since John and I opened the podcast slash YouTube channel. Just being able to meet
Mm.
people like you and all the others we've had on so far, it's just it definitely excites you about the hobby, and you just kind of wonder what's going to happen next. But I
Mm.
love meeting people and hearing their stories, and if they think, oh, I'm going on too long, like you did earlier, I'm like, no, that's my favorite part. That's my favorite part. Like, tell me more stories about yourself as a collector. I love it, man. So it's I
Yeah.
really appreciate you coming on the show and just sharing a little bit about yourself as a collector and some of the pieces in your journey. But please feel free right now if you've got any other stories to share or anything that you want to show off in your collection. I'll be super keen to have a look at it if you got anything hanging around there.
Um, yeah, no, I think I've probably showed my favorites. I've got about 21,000 cards that I've catalogued, and probably have
Wow.
another 6 or 7 thousand that I haven't. So there's a lot, but I'm mainly a set collector, right? So like a
Okay.
lot of them are just sets that I'm trying to complete from childhood and through
Oh,
childhood. So
wow.
yeah,
Now
I've
then,
shown you
there's a
a
great
decent
question
one.
for me. There is you said you're a set collector. What's your favorite set then, or do you have a top three sets of cards that you really like?
Um,
It could be any genre. It doesn't matter. Just which ones and why. What
yeah,
ones just kind of just pop into your mind straight away? You're like, I like it because of the rookie class, or I like it because of the look. Because I've been thinking about
yeah.
sets a lot lately.
I've just got my albums back here. So I mean, obviously the wrestling cards are definitely number one.
Yeah.
Um, I've got Skybox Thunder from 98, 99. Like I really enjoy that set. Like I pulled a nice
Yeah.
Kobe insert from that set too, which I'd like to get graded one day. Um, I love those like 90s, like late 90s.
I
Um,
think you're exactly right. Those 98 cards might
yeah,
just be like, in terms of the quality of product, it might be the best. It might
yeah, yeah,
that 98, and then obviously LeBron's rookie year as well with the rookie class and those. What was the upper deck set that they had? Was it exquisite? It's exquisite.
yeah,
They are
yep,
stunning, man.
yeah. I don't
But
have
I
any of
agree
those.
with you. Those no, not me. I just look at them and go,
Yeah,
whoa. But
yeah,
those late '90s guys, I think '98 in particular is just one of those peak years of all of the big boys kind of printing as about as good a quality as you'll find. I think that might have been one of the last years that the Tops was doing basketball, even maybe not, but I
yes,
think it might have been.
yeah,
It was like this really great Tops gold set, I want to say, around that time.
yeah,
But late '90s, '98 in particular, was a really great year for cards. I completely agree with you there. Yeah, very
yeah.
cool.
I
So,
think
how many
when
sets
there
do
was
you think
always
you
that
have?
set. So I've got I don't know. There's about 40 albums there. So say maybe there's 2 to 3. Yeah, maybe 80 odd sets, I guess. Yeah, I mean, all in various levels of completion. Like I'm always like
Mhm.
trying to go back and complete different sets. Like the garbage gang ones, I've been buying up quite a few lately. The Series 4 on those, very rare. There wasn't many of them printed in New Zealand for some reason. So I'm trying to complete that set. But yeah, I'm very much like you're talking about space. Like I'm at the limit with the number of albums I can fit in that space now. Like,
Oh
so
wow!
now I
Oh
need to
wow!
be more. I need to, I think, just focus on more high end stuff. I think, to be honest, and
Hmm.
because I'm quite, I don't want to start just storing stuff in bins that I can't see. Like I like them being in albums that I can flick through and look at and appreciate.
Hmm. Hmm.
So until I can get a bigger room, yeah, I'll have to be a bit more picky.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. Is your son, obviously he's collecting autos with you? Is he on the same journey of you as a collector, in the sense that he's starting to get into sets and that kind of thing? Or
Yeah, I've got two boys. One, so my 12-year-old, he's very into it. Like he went through a period of being super into Pokemon, and I know you've got an
nice.
episode coming up about Pokemon soon, so I'm keen to
Yeah,
check that out.
cool.
Um, yeah, and then he's sort of getting more merged into like basketball with me. Um, so yeah, I he's got a few albums himself. Yeah, I don't know how he'll go. I think that generation they very much like the hits, right? Like they'll be opening up packs of cards with me, and it'd be like, "How much is this one worth?" And I'd be like, "Oh, probably $1," you know. But I like it. But he just wants to know how much things are worth and what's the big hit.
Very
But yeah, my
transactional card
youngest,
collectors.
yeah, my youngest is not hasn't got into it yet, so I need to work out how to get him to it. But yeah, it's pretty fun
Yeah,
having
I think
something you can share
in
with
a
people.
way that collecting, like I do like collecting and having stuff, but I think there's always in the back of our minds, even if we admit it or not, there's a little bit of us that wants to be like, this has a value and it's got a monetary value and it could be worth a lot. But I think, like you said, that the focus of a lot of this generation is how much is it worth is often the first question. For mine, it's just
Yeah,
like, how rare is it? And I like the way that that one looks and I want it.
yeah,
And that's what, and I think
yeah.
that's why for me, that Stephen Adams card was so was so on my bucket list for so long. I was like, I really like the flag on the back of that card. Oh, that looks good. And this is a rookie, and he signed it on card. I mean, if I'm going to
Yeah,
put money into a Steve Adams card, it's going to be that one. And so
yeah,
we
definitely.
lucked out, man. We really lucked out. It was great. So sometimes I think that
Yeah,
card's just meant to be one of yours, you know. So that's how I
yeah,
felt with that one, anyway.
definitely. It's one that's
Great,
on
man.
my list. If you find another one, you'll have to let me know.
I will. I will. It's I'm definitely happy that I've got it. So John just sent it off for grading, actually, and
Oh,
they just
cool.
came back. So there's one 8 and one 8.5, and he said because I'm a
Okay.
Kiwi, I get the 8.5. I'm like,
Oh,
I'm not going to
yes.
argue, man. I won't argue.
That's
But they look really nice in the SGC slab, and he'll get them
Oh,
in a
cool.
couple of months' time, and I'm hoping to pick them up off him as soon as possible, which would be cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Great, man. Well, thank you so much for coming onto the show. I really, really loved your story about Butch. I think a lot of people will resonate with that story about him, and hopefully it'll make them a little bit more curious about him as a man as well, and want to kind of check out his story. And I'm really looking forward to when you finish the book too. I know it's obviously something that you want to do really well, and make sure that you honor him with that. So I'm really looking forward to when it comes out. So as soon as it
Yeah,
does, I'm gonna be buying a copy for sure.
wicked. Yeah, if people want to follow along, just hit up Facebook and it's just Bushwhacker Butch, Facebook/Bushwhacker Butch. And yeah, I've got
Mhm.
a page that's been set up there for a while now. Hasn't been any updates recently, but yeah, just give it a follow and a like, and when there are updates, you'll see them.
Amazing. That's so cool, man. Hey, and your Instagram handle is Great Buyback Cards. Is that
It
right?
is, yep. Hmm.
Perfect. So I guess if anybody wants to get in touch with Shannon, then they're more than welcome to do so.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. All right, bro. Thank you so much.
Cool. Oh, thanks so much for having me, Will. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
no worries.